Portland's Friday Forum. I'm Courtney Nelson, president of City Club. For 100 years, City Club of Portland is where civic-minded people come together to make Portland and Oregon a better place for everyone to live, work, and explore. We're gathered at the Sentinel Hotel, along with all of you listening on OPB Radio or viewing on Portland Community Media or YouTube. The generous support of City Club's corporate and media partners enables us to put on the state's best civic programs week after week. Our media partner is Oregon Business Magazine, and our fall Friday Forum sponsors are Albon Renewables, Airbnb, McKinley Irvin, AARP, and Uber. Please join me in showing our appreciation for all of them. And now on to today's Friday Forum. Our topic is the Soul District, investing in places and spaces for Black PDX. Portland, as we all know, has often been referred to as the whitest city in America. Just this year, several articles in The Atlantic have referenced this. However, does this narrative overshadow the reality of the city's growth in Black-owned businesses? According to the U.S. Census figures, there were nearly 5,000 Black businesses in Portland in 2012, which is up 42% from 5 years prior. A group of Black business owners and leaders are proposing to create the Soul District in Northeast Portland as a way to support Black entrepreneurs. And today, we are joined by 3 Portland entrepreneurs: Stephen Green, Cole Reed, and Gina Woolley. Our moderator, today is James Morris, chair of the Oregon Commission on Black Affairs. Stephen Green is an economist and entrepreneur turned investor with more than 20 years of experience in helping startups access the capital they need to start, grow, and prosper. He finds innovative ways to connect underrepresented entrepreneurs within the startup ecosystem. He serves on a number of boards and commissions, including the Oregon Growth Board and the Oregon Small Business Advisory Cabinet. Cole Reed is a Portland-based artist and co-owner of Greenhouse Gallery and Boutique, a design and artistic endeavor of Dana and Cole Reed. Greenhouse was proud to have been part of the Roosevelt Row Arts District in Phoenix, Arizona, and now finds itself in Portland. Gina Woolley is a developer and president of the J.M. Woolley & Associates, a community development services consulting firm. Prior to setting up her own firm, Gina was director of operations for Pacific Development, Inc., a real estate subsidiary of Pacific Corp. Ms. Woolley has worked in a variety of consulting projects surrounding redevelopment and revitalization strategies for commercial corridors in North and Northeast Portland. And our moderator, James Morris, is a South Carolinian who has lived in Portland for 20 years. He serves as chair of the Oregon Commission on Black Affairs, is a member of the Oregon Board of Dentistry, and sits on the board of the nonprofit FAME. He's a partner with La Caja Services, a consulting firm focused on working with entrepreneurs of color seeking to enter the recreational cannabis market. Please welcome our panelist and moderator today.
Thank you, Courtney, and welcome to City Club's Friday Forum. There's a prevailing narrative that's been in the media of late, with Portland being named one of the whitest, if not the whitest, city in the country. Part of that narrative is about gentrification, particularly in Portland's traditionally African-American neighborhoods in North and Northeast Portland. Stephen Green, you and others have been pushing back on that dominant narrative of Black folks being pushed out of Portland. Say more about that.
I think one of the things that I've been focused on is really how do we present more narratives. Gentrification is a very real thing. Involuntary displacement has definitely happened, continues to happen in a number of areas of the Portland region. And there's also these other things happening. We're also seeing the number of Black businesses in the state grow tremendously. How do we have those narratives live as well as the other negative narratives that are opportunities that we need to continue to attack? And one of the reasons why I think we need to continue to focus on that is we have young people in our community. I have 3 kids that are brown kids, and they need to be able to see hope and possibility for themselves in this wonderful city. And so I think one of the things that I'm focused on, as well as the people up here, a number of you in the audience, is making sure that our young folks see a great future for themselves here in Portland.
Thank you. Cole Reed, you are an artist and a Black entrepreneur who just recently made the choice to move here to Portland and build a business here. You must have heard the stories about Portland being a very, very white city. What did you make of Portland when you first got here?
You know, I was a summer bird for about 5 or 6 years, and my wife is a graduate of Willamette University. So I was already in love with the city, you know, spending, you know, the 10 years of us being together. So I have a very romantic relationship with Portland, the atmosphere, the politics. So it was a very easy segue for us. A lot of people don't understand that Dana and I left Phoenix because Arizona doesn't support same-sex adoption. So we have a beautiful little boy, so we sold everything and said, I'm sorry, if you don't understand that, then you don't understand the maximized of my tax dollars, so I'm gonna take them with me somewhere else full-time. So I'm very honored that Portland appreciates my tax dollars and my beautiful family.
Well, we appreciate you being here. And a follow-up question to that. Cole, since you've established your business, Greenhouse in Northeast Portland, what has your experience been like? And what have been your challenges? And what has surprised you?
You know, one of the funniest things, but you know, because I've had to learn as I get older to have a sense of humor, people often assume that my assistant is my boss. I think because, you know, Portland is a very white city. That's happened, you know, to me in the past, but I just think that we need more exposure, more opportunity, and to invite people to open their minds in a more broader sense. I'm a very good backup dancer, but I think the assumption says a lot about the culture of the city because it's happened more than once. We own 2 businesses in Portland, and it's happened on more than a few occasions, seeing me as an owner or assuming that since I have a white partner that she is also my boss. So I'm often seen as the secretary or, you know, the assistant. I've had someone ask me to get them coffee once, which I'm more than willing to get you a cup of coffee. And they're often surprised when they see my face associated with a name like Cole Reed. They assume that I'm a very tall white man with blonde hair and blue eyes for some reason. And so some people are a little disappointed, but they're okay.
Well, there's a movement afoot amongst some of the Black community members to reclaim North and Northeast Portland. Gina Woolley, tell us, what is the Soul District Project, and where did your group get the idea?
What was the last part of the question?
And where did your group get the idea?
Well, the Soul District is, there's a group of us that started to come together about 2.5 years ago to have discussions about what we could do to elevate the profile of Black businesses, how we could essentially provide a different profile to new folks coming in about what was really going on. I mean, you know, we've got the gentrification. Everybody knows about the gentrification story, but there are so many wonderful things happening in pockets, and we need to tell, as Stephen mentioned earlier, we need to tell those stories too, so that our children, our community has choices about what's possible. And we need to keep working on the things that are not working, but we also need to celebrate the successes that we are having and the growth that we are having in certain ways. So, several of us who were a part of this group have been involved in economic development in North and Northeast Portland long before it was gentrified. In fact, much of what has happened in North and Northeast Portland is a function of us and a number of other of our compatriots, some of them who are sitting in the audience, who have worked for 35 or 40 years to try to create economic opportunity in Northeast Portland for the community. And we were very successful in bringing in resources, in getting political support, but the problem is that we weren't prepared to take advantage of those opportunities. And our organizations weren't prepared to take advantage of those opportunities. So since most of that political support and those resources were essentially geographically focused, other people, new people, young people came and took advantage of those opportunities. And so I think that our feeling is that the thing that's been missing is we need to create economic ladders. We need to grow our business community. We need to show our kids that they can diversify and they can do more things than take a government job. Not that government is bad, but that they should become part of the new economy, which is technology and sustainable sector industries. And we need to get that profile so that construction is a very viable profession, and we don't have training schools anymore like we did in high schools. Thank God we've got legislation, and hopefully that we'll get some of that technical training back in the schools. But essentially, we need to create other opportunities for our children, and we felt that we could begin to work on a number of these initiatives if we could create focus back in Northeast, and that we needed to be able to tell positive stories, convene people, to promote Black businesses and entrepreneurs. We're trying to fill some of the gaps that others are not filling. We have a number of wonderful community organizations that are doing fantastic work, both in technical assistance for businesses, in social justice, but we are trying here to build wealth. And so a lot of our initiatives are around trying to build wealth for Black businesses and Black entrepreneurs.
If you're just turning in on OPB, you're listening to City Club of Portland's Friday Forum. I'm James Morris of La Caja Advisors and chair of Oregon's Commission of Black Affairs. We are talking about investing in places and spaces for Portland's Black businesses and communities. Gina, what has the reaction been to the Soul District?
Well, we've had a lot of reactions, but I think we recently worked with DHM, who Adam Davis and Eddie are both worked with us to do a survey, a community survey, and that survey polled Black businesses, it polled Black community influencers, and it polled basically anybody, a community member. So we had about 850 responses to that survey, and essentially one of the reasons we went to do the survey is because we were getting mixed reviews about whether people thought it made sense to try to put a focus back on Northeast for Black businesses and entrepreneurs. And we wanted to test our assumption that we think we need a hub. It's not where all Black activity, economic activity needs to be, but it needs to be a place where we can shine a light on it. And so what was wonderful about the survey is that we got across all of those interview segments about 80% of the folks who said that they support the idea of the Soul District and of having a focus, a hub for African-American businesses and entrepreneurs in Northeast Portland. So that was very reassuring to us and kind of validated something that we feel despite some of the other feedback that we're getting from different segments of the community.
And Gina, this next one's for you, but also would like for Stephen to chime in on the second part of this question. Why do you think it's important to have identifiable physical space be associated with the African-American community and Black businesses? And why should it be in Northeast Portland if so many have left?
I'll start first. I think one of the things is we really want to challenge common assumptions and perspectives that people have. You don't get to read a lot of positive stuff about us in the newspaper or in media, and so the convening piece that Gina was talking about is a really, really powerful thing. I think when people of common communities can come together and see one another, when in their daily lives that doesn't happen very often, it can be very reassuring and battle things like imposter syndrome, where being a person of color inside finance, I generally don't see myself in a lot of the venues that I'm at, but to be able to come to a place or to come to a setting where I know I can come and see other people that have similar backgrounds as myself and look like me and share conversations, it kind of recharges the batteries. And so I think in doing that in Northeast Portland, I think it resonates both with longtime historic residents of Portland, but also with a lot of the newcomers, people coming here working for OHSU or Nike. When they're looking at a map and they've just gotten their job, no one tells them, oh, well, there's black barbershops over here and there's black churches. And so for them to come to this new city and then be able to find a way to connect with folks in the community is a really uplifting thing for a lot of our newer residents as well.
We had in the survey, I'm going to, sort of drop a few highlights of the survey, but we actually had 2/3 of the black businesses in the survey that responded say that they would be interested in actually locating in Northeast Portland or having a satellite in Northeast Portland. And the major obstacles they see to that are essentially the price of commercial space, which goes to the gentrification issue, and the capital, having access to capital. So from BICEP's standpoint, these are things that are part of our initiatives to actually create investment capital pools and to create a community investment model where community members can invest in black businesses that that are located in the community or want to locate in the community and help make that happen. And then the real estate development angle, which is that we hope to actually create 1 to 3 major developments in Northeast Portland over the next 5 to 7 years. And that would allow us to, essentially curate space where we could bring these businesses together.
I wanted to jump in there. Portland is already a beautiful and amazing city. And I think something for me that we are lacking as a community and as a city is an opportunity of diversity, because that's an opportunity. So what we're missing out on is bigger companies wanting to come to Portland. Nike, they get their people from around the world. And something that I've heard time and time again, a lot of people of color, and I'm not talking just African Americans, Chinese Americans, Indian Americans don't want to come here because we are seen. And so we are actually omitting probably some of the greatest minds who see our city as a single lane. So for me, diversifying is, of course, I want everyone to prosper, people to me, who look like me to prosper, but we're missing out on an opportunity to make our city overall greater and stronger because people sometimes of color don't want to move here because they've heard all of these things. So yes, it is about increasing black businesses, but it's also about increasing the magnitude of our city. And if we don't get on that bandwagon as a group, all of us, we're all lacking.
Cole, thanks. Appreciate all those responses. So how is the Soul District different from the City of Portland's efforts at urban renewal, which has largely contributed to gentrification and displacement in neighborhoods that used to be predominantly African American?
Well, the Soul District is it's planned and initiated and implemented by a team of black people and basically in partnership with black organizations in the black community and our public partners. So I think that our intent is to essentially take charge. I think what's happened with PDC is that PDC actually gets a bad rap, but PDC has done a lot of good work. The problem is nobody was conscious about what happens, because the market takes hold. And when the market takes hold, when you start improving communities, revitalizing communities, there's a market effect, a real estate effect that actually takes hold. And, even those of us who've been working in economic development didn't realize some of the consequences when we started off in the 80s trying to rehab vacant and abandoned houses, and we worked with the public partners to get money for our CDCs that were doing that work to rehab those. Well, it elevated those neighborhoods. Then other people wanted to move in who couldn't afford houses other places. And then essentially, so we helped create some of that without understanding that unless you create placeholders, what's really important for the public sector to understand is they need to work with communities to create placeholders so that when the economic cycle takes hold, and you do actually have revitalization occurring, that you're going to be able to maintain places for the people who were there and who were really the initiators and were the backbone behind creating that change in those neighborhoods, and now don't get to take advantage of that.
I think one of the things that I would also add is there's a real premium on relationships in communities of color. And I think when you look at the group of people that we have, particularly someone like Carl Talton, his resume of what he's done for communities in Northeast Portland is impeccable. One of the founders behind Albino Community Bank, and having him come and say, we're going to go and do some stuff, we're going to help plan and do things. There's a certain amount of gravitas and trust that he's already got that I think is harder for public agencies to do when they're doing outreach. And so I think it really helps our organization partner with other folks because the trust and there's a positive history there for a lot of people that are working with us that we can help leverage things quicker.
You know, Stephen used the word history, and I think that's something all of us in the United States, in my opinion, I'm going to use my words very carefully here, not to step on too many toes, we're not honest about our history in general. And that's something that we really, truly need to address, because without acknowledging that there is economic disparagement within the Black community, job opportunity, health care, mental care, that all comes down to a whole product. And if you don't have those things individually, once again saying if we're not honest about the history and what's actually happening here, it can't improve. And so what I'm asking everyone for me to do is we need to be more honest about those things so we can actually step forward opposed to marinating in the past. So we really need to take a step up and beyond to make this work for all of us, because it's truly about inclusion if we talk about community as a whole. Once again, in my opinion, I want that noted.
Well, thanks for your opinion. And this next question is somewhat of a, you somewhat answered it, but I'd like to a little bit more detail. And that's the reality is that housing and real estate prices continue to soar in inner Northeast Portland. And many, including Black residents and business owners, continue to be displaced, whether by choice or not. And I think that speaks to the historical that you spoke about, Cole. How does a project like the Soul District benefit a Black community that lives more dispersed in areas further afield in the Portland metro area?
So I think I'll take the first stab at that. Part of it is really back to that convening element. So 2 weeks ago, we hosted the second annual Pitch Black, and we did it inside Northeast. We had over 200, almost 250 people attend an event that highlighted 10 Black entrepreneurs who pitched their ideas on their businesses. These were makers, these were tech people, these were people that were trying to create service businesses, and it was an amazing opportunity for people to come from all over the region and actually from all over the country. We had people come in from California and Texas to attend the event, and we convened it in Northeast Portland. And so I think there's an amazing opportunity within the geography to create these spaces that resonate outside of just Northeast Portland. And have conversations that maybe folks in Hillsborough and Beaverton aren't able to have. And also leverage the opportunity for partnerships, because this is not something that we're doing on our own. I think there's a huge appetite for a number of organizations practicing here in the Portland area to really elevate ideas and opportunities around diversity and inclusion. And I think what we helped do was operationalize that. We had a great partner in Pitch Black, which was Portland Independent Chamber of Commerce, who between them and their members raised $7,000 to be able to give to the winners of Pitch Black. the year previous. Yeah, definitely, congrats to them. And so I think there's this opportunity where there's a number of people that are circling around inclusion and equity, and they want to do something, and I think our group is really helping them operationalize those things and really leading forward with done beats perfect.
You know, fear. I'm just going to say the word that everyone, I think, or a lot of people of color are thinking. Something like the Soul District or Pitch Black, which is so amazing, is often I found myself in the past being afraid to be on a stage that people don't look like me, because we often don't have the same opportunities, or we have to work twice as hard, or have, more degrees, or, have something more substantial than anyone else. I had a young man in my store a couple weeks ago. We were talking about the election. Shh, we're not going to talk about that right now. We were talking about the election, and he was telling me how he wasn't going to vote. Young man comes in, blonde, blue-eyed, heterosexual, very confident, and he tells me he's not going to vote. And we talked about fear. Because he can rule the world. And I was saying, I think it's your entitlement getting in the way of your common sense, because you are a heavily entitled person. So, and he actually asked me some questions, and he said, but you own the store, and you have these opportunities, and you've got a great reputation. And I said, well, sweetheart, once we lock these doors and I'm walking to my car, it's fear. I'm afraid. And that leads to business, that leads to psychology. So how are you going to get the best of anything if you're afraid? And so what the Soul District, I feel, has done, has taken out the fear of business, the fear of success, the fear of harboring hundreds of years of guilt and isolation. So it's time for us to get past it. So it's not just us on the stage, it's an ally, it's a community event, and we really need all of us together to step up and support this, because it's also about your economics. It's about your city, it's about your state, it's about your United States. So, I know that my way isn't always the most graceful. We need to get it together.
Thank you, Cole.
Don't send me hate mail later.
Don't need to say nothing more to that.
And there it is. What other efforts are happening to support Black businesses and entrepreneurs?
So we're going to continue to look for opportunities to support existing Black businesses in the Soul District area, but also, find more opportunities for people like Cole to come and expand their business or start a new business in the area. I think one of the great things about the group of people that we have is we can take a lot of the stuff that business owners don't want to work on. What's a lease and all that, and tenant improvements and all those things. We got people that know a ton of stuff about that. And we can make that mountain to climb a lot easier to move forward with. Plus, we have great relationships with a lot of different property owners around the area. One of the things we're trying to finalize right now is a co-working space that actually this woman right now here next to my left would be running, that would provide an opportunity for minority and women entrepreneurs to have a space in the Soul District area to start and grow their business.
And for our radio listeners, the lady to his left is Cole Reed.
Well, and I think the other thing, James, is that this idea of co-working spaces, we want to create hives so people can drive down Williams and Vancouver and they can see some Black people in those new places. So that, when people think about Northeast Portland, everybody says we're all gone. Actually, Northeast Portland is still 20 to 25% Black, depending on where you are in it. I mean, the population, that's huge for Portland. It's not huge for a city that's predominantly Black, but it's huge for Portland in terms of the demographics of the neighborhood. So we want to make sure that people can see themselves functioning, doing business, partaking of the upside that's going on in Northeast Portland, because we think that's going to make a difference. It's going to create more opportunity. It's going to inspire our kids. It sends all the right messages. And we want to put the focus, on that while everybody else is working. All of our social justice organizations are working on the other things of trying to create greater equity in the city as a whole.
You know, for me, co-working spaces, I own a co-working space or co-working spaces already. You know, it's really about the tutelage, again, for women, for people of color. Once again, in my opinion, I feel our educational system doesn't see the same light in people of color, so we don't get the same skill, the same opportunity. And, you know, I want to be an assist with that, but also ask the hard questions that maybe, you know, students, parents, professors, we don't invest in our young people, so we become adults who aren't as invested in to ask the hard questions. How's your credit? You know, who is your demographic? Who are you trying to serve and why? So a co-working space where you've got, you know, a group of people together working on that, doing that, and guess what? Those however many people, 10 people, they leave, they go out and into the world, they've got their own businesses. We get another 10 people who come in who are doing the incubation portion in a co-working space. Oh my gosh, they go out into the world with greater knowledge. They have their own businesses. And so we keep our community, once again, that word is very important to me personally, that we need to all get on the bandwagon to be a community effort of education, community effort of goals, community effort of success. Because, you know, we are looking at very limited opportunities in general in the United States, in Portland, and part of it is an assumption. You know, me personally, I have been greeted in Portland with the most of care and absolute bliss, but I can also look around that a lot of my counterparts aren't getting the same respect. When people make assumptions about who I am as far as education or different things, simply by the color of my skin, simply by the gender of my body, we need to work harder. So it's everyone in this room, everyone outside this room, as a collective to get on board, because it's your community too.
Well, taking that into note as far as everybody getting on board, what more should be done to support economic development in the Black community, and who should be doing it?
Everybody should be doing it. I mean, you know, there was some of you may be aware there was a day at the end of August to support Black restaurants. So, you know, Stephen's working on another initiative with a group of Black businesses to buy Black. So that there will be information to where people can go and visit businesses that produce products. And I think that wherever you can support Black businesses, you can be a patron of Black businesses, do it. That's the first step, is just treating people like they're part of your community and, you know, supporting them. And then the rest of us are going to be working on the other things that take more time to implement, to create movement in the infrastructure, you know, of the city and the public policy sector.
I think the first thing for us to do is really attack our perspectives on what we see and what we think of when we hear Black Portland. I think people are shocked when they hear there's more than 4,000 Black businesses in the Portland metro area, and that number is growing. I think people are shocked when they hear that there's more Black businesses in Northeast Portland than there's ever been right now. And what that really brings to mind for me is that we have this perspective built in our mind of, well, businesses in the Black community are generally things that we see, and they're service businesses, and they're a dry cleaner, they're a barber shop, as opposed to, well, there's a Black venture capital firm that's on MLK that's been there for years that no one knows about, and no one would assume that that firm exists. Right in between Broadway and Lombard on MLK, right in the heart of the community, you've got more than 50 Black businesses. You've got a number of commercial and residential properties that are owned by Black families. You've got one Black family that owns 24 properties in inner Northeast Portland. You've got 2 blocks on Alberta right now being developed by a Black family that's owned the property for decades. And you know, general Portlanders and I think people in the state of Oregon don't know those things are existing. And I think once your perspective goes from there's 12 or 15 Black businesses to 4,000, geez, I gotta do something. I gotta know more than just coal. I think there's this, you know, sense of urgency that kind of dawns over you that it's like, whoa, like there's a black drone company? Yeah, there's a black drone company here in Portland kicking butt. And so if we can raise our perspective, then we can have those other conversations around, well, how can I help work with these other organizations I didn't even know existed that have been doing great work for decades? Like MISO, like Black United Fund of Portland, like the Urban League. Wow, how can I help out? What's my piece of this? And I think we have a number of people that are now stepping up, black, white, or otherwise, that are saying, well, what's my part? How can I help out?
What's also the assumption that we can only cut hair, that we can only play basketball, that we can do anything. And we need to get past that once again, because, you know, if Stephen is in finance and you see his name on paper, much like my name, and all kinds of assumptions happen. And we need to get past that. Oh my God, they can swim? What? Like we're a breed of animal. And this still happens. You know, so, you know, we can laugh about it because there is some humor to it. They play hockey? Oh my God, they play golf? So it becomes a them and us, and we really need to take out the them and us and say, oh wow, you can do more than cut hair and play basketball, which there's nothing wrong with those things, but that's where we are boxed in, if we're gonna be honest. I've had people in the past, I'm so sorry, assume that I have less of a scientific mind or a math mind because of my gender or because of my race, and that's ridiculous.
Well, no need to apologize.
I won't.
But before we go to Q&A with the audience, I'd like to talk about that narrative. How do we get that narrative out that there's those types of businesses in North and Northeast Portland? How do we get that narrative out that we have people in the tech industry here that have bought and sold businesses that are of color, that are black? How does that narrative get out?
So I think you have to be proactive. I got to give Casey Parks from the Oregonian props for doing a number of stories that she's done in the black community over the last month. But that was, you know, really started with a conversation we had a year ago about, you know, why in general does the Oregonian only write about the black community when it's negative things? You know, we've got positive things going on. There's definitely some opportunities and challenges happening, but why can't there be discussions about, the only footwear development school in the world is here in Portland, and it's run by a black man, and we don't get an article about that. Why is it only that we have articles written around diversity as opposed to we do stuff in commercial development, we do stuff in business, we do stuff in finance? Why aren't the finance reporters covering those things? And so it takes an active approach. I don't think it's one of those things where you just say, man, I wish that would happen or whatever. You've got to go and set actions in place to go and do that. And then you also have to work with the business owners to help them put themselves out there. Some want to, some don't want to. I think by and large, the thing I'm always surprised by in working with a lot of black and brown entrepreneurs is they say, I wish people in the community knew I existed. People pass me by because of where I'm located or the type of business that I do, so they assume that I'm not a business that's owned by a person of color. Some friends and I helped co-found a brew pub in Northeast Portland, and we hosted a lot of community events there. And a recent one we did was with PALF, and there was a group of about 30 people in our ballroom there, and they were having a conversation, and one of the women that was there got up and said, oh, I've never come to this place. This is just another example of gentrification. And it was so funny, the woman that was hosting the event was like, well, I'd like you to meet Steven, who's the host that helped us get the space tonight. And I was like, hi. But there was this assumption that because there was beer and it was a brewery, that there was obviously no one black involved, as opposed to the reality is like the #1 brewer in the country is actually a black man in New York named Garrett Oliver, right? So again, back to those perspective things and back to being actionable.
Perspective, but also I am going to call upon our allies to stand a little taller and do a little bit more, because when you're in a place and you hear other people making assumptions, my expectation for you is to get your foot out of your mouth and say, no, this is the reality, this is a black-owned business, oh my God, we should support this. And I'm gonna be honest, we really need to work together, but I need you to do more. And that's a very uncomfortable thing, because if you've got 25% of black people, businesses in an area that leads 75%, that's not hard math. So when we talk about sustainability, guess what? I expect you to go into those businesses and you buy that beer. You get your shirt dry cleaned, you get that haircut, and you get it together because it is a community effort. For us to be at 100%, you really must include that 25%, or you're simply yourselves at a C grade. It's not hard.
And I promise we're going to go to Q&A, but Stephen, I would like you to just to elaborate. You mentioned PALF, and I don't think that our radio listeners or probably most anyone in this room knows what PALF is. Could you expand on that?
So the Portland African-American Leadership Forum is a great organization that's working to elevate these kind of conversations that we're having right now: economic development, housing, education, civic engagement. One of the great things I think about our community and is really exemplified by the work that PALF is doing is we have this growing youthful generation of folks in our community that really, really, really want to connect with the stories of their grandparents, the stories of their parents around the Portland community that used to exist. I think the biggest negative around gentrification has been the loss of community here in Northeast Portland. That we had a really, really tight-knit group of neighbors and people you could go and borrow sugar from, or Miss Johnson could tell you, no, you don't cross the street there. I'll tell your parents. All right, I'm not going to do that. And those are the things that I think about that are lost in this fracturing of the community. And so I love what PALF's doing in a number of organizations where they're bringing these conversations up and they're talking about, economic development and housing and really, really important issues. And then how can we take steps and actions to, take the negative things that are happening and turn them into positives and do progress.
All right. So now we're going to go to the Q&A portion of the program. If you have a written question on an index card, please hold it up high so the City Club staff can collect it from you. And as those are being collected, I already have a question here, and I'll go ahead and ask it. Outside of efforts being done by BICEP, what other organizations or programs are providing access to capital for entrepreneurs of color?
Well, we have several, actually, in Northeast. We have MISO, which has started out doing micro-lending. They've helped a number of minority businesses in North and Northeast Portland and around the city. We have OWAMI, which has been around for 30 years, that provides technical assistance and support and has their facility out in Delta Park. So we have some long-standing organizations that actually help people get into business, help them learn how to learn all the technical things they need to do to survive and be successful in business. And, those are organizations that we expect to work with. They have a portfolio of people that they already work with. Though we're not trying, in BICEP, we're not trying to supplant that. We're trying to augment what's already going on out there and to try to fill some of the gaps for Black businesses and entrepreneurs.
Yeah, we also have organizations like Albon Community Bank, been around 20 plus years. They literally exist because other banks weren't serving the people living in Northeast Portland. You have Albina Bank Corp that's here, Albina Opportunities Corp, which is a non-bank lender that literally was created again to help people that are underserved in the lending industry. But you can't overlook the value in really what I think MISO does specifically, Micro Enterprise Services of Oregon. They bring empathy and really a technical assistance piece that helps people learn to fish. If you just provide people capital and you don't address the things around how they can really build a great business, then you're prolonging the inevitable, but they really teach people to fish.
Okay. So we will now take questions from the audience. As always, we invite members to the microphone to ask their question. Asking questions at the Friday Forum microphone is a benefit of City Club membership, and membership is open to everyone. Before asking your question, please identify yourself as a City Club member and ask your question in 30 seconds or less. Also, I will read at least one index card question.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Joanne Hardesty, City Club member. I really appreciated hearing from the panel. My question, I guess the first part of my question is really directed to Gina Woolley, because I've known her for a bazillion years and know the leadership that she has provided around economic development. I wonder if you would talk a little bit about the development of the Albino Community Plan and the community's plan to address growth in North and Northeast Portland. And for the rest of the panelists, I'd like you to address the issue of the uncomfortableness that African Americans are experiencing when they go enter North and Northeast Portland nowadays to these new businesses that are not very welcoming to us once we get inside.
Well, thank you, Joanne. The Albino Community Plan really started a lot of the revitalization that we see in inner Northeast Portland, and it was there was a community process in the late 80s and early 90s that essentially went on for over a year and a half, where we had multiple community forums. At the time, the neighborhoods looked much different. People participated in those things. And the city actually, the kind of comprehensive plan process that they have now, this was the first time that they ever implemented a plan that went beyond land use and zoning, and it talked about all the aspects of that make community, like economic development and education and social services and so forth. So the plan was very comprehensive, and it had an action plan associated with it. And part of the issue of a lot of that plan, in terms of the action plan, never got developed because the resources weren't there to develop and to support the organizations who needed to do those other pieces besides zoning and land use. And we didn't create the coalitions in the public sector or get the, really have the public leadership to work with those community organizations to help them connect with resources, to really lift the community up in every way. So, those are things we can look at and figure out how we can do better when we go to plan now. And I think there's so much in what has happened in Northeast Portland over the last 40 years, and I've been there and been involved for all 40 of those years. Since 1970, working to try to create economic opportunity in Northeast Portland. We need to learn from the past, and we need to understand what we already did, because what's happening now with the young people, you'll notice that both of these people on stage with me, my fellow panelists, are much better speakers. They've got energy. I'm tired. I'm an old, tired warhorse. These two young folks have such fabulous energy. This is the kind of talent and energy that we have in our Black community that isn't getting seen. And so it's really important for you guys to see them and hear them and see how much talent we have in this community that isn't being showcased. So that's part of what we're trying to do. But we also need, as a community, and I'm talking about the whole community, I'm talking about the Portland community, if we're really concerned about creating diversity and equity and all of that, we need to look at what we've done in the past and why it didn't work. We can't just start from scratch again and do the same things over. There's the old adage that history repeats itself. It is repeating itself. I feel like I'm back in the 1970s, and the things that are going on the ground are the same things that we tried to do in the 1970s. And it's really discouraging to see that that we're starting from scratch again. So I think that thank you for bringing that up, because I think that when we talk about what we can do, we need to look at the past if we're really concerned about making change, and figure out why things didn't work the way we wanted them to, the way we intended them to in the past.
Thank you. And as far as for the next question from the microphone.
Carol Witherell, City Club member. Wow, thank you for challenging me, opening my thoughts even more broadly than I've had them before. A good example of what you were just speaking of, Gina, was, and owning the narratives of the past is something that we're all obligated to do, and I feel that it's the foundation for future change. I just watched Local Color once again, and I thought, oh my gosh, it's back because of gentrification and urban renewal with blinders, and we've got so much work to do. That narrative of Portland being the whitest city in the country has often haunted me as, yes, it names something, but it also obscures so much of what you offered today to change and expand that narrative. So if you were to give one single short mantra for expanding that narrative, what would it be for each of you?
Wow, I'm going to say privilege. I don't think privilege is necessarily a bad thing. It's only bad when you don't know what to do with it. And so we have a lot of people right now who want to make America great again. Guess what? We are great, but I'm asking you to use your privilege, because we all have a degree of privilege, to use it for the greater good of our community. And by doing that, it's going to beautify and expand and possibly add a little color to the community. So using your privilege and your voice and actually making that a thing of action opposed to reaction. We are a very reactionary community in the American mindset, in my opinion. So we need to get past being reactionary and work on actions and using all of our privilege for good to enhance our community, opposed to trying to make America great again.
The other thing I would add to that is I always think about asking yourself, is something important to you or is it urgent? Because if it's important, then you talk about it, you'll throw out equity a couple times, diversity here and there, maybe change your mission statement. But if it's urgent, that implies action. There is no silver bullet out there. Progress is 10,000 little things that when you look back over time, you're like, wow, we actually pulled something off. And so I think with the way things are going right now, have some urgency and don't wait for the perfect thing to come, and get beyond just saying it's important, beyond saying diversity 14 times, and really doing something.
And before we move on to the next question, the only thing that I'll add to that, outside of urgency and importance, is that it has to be deliberate. It has to be something that is deliberate and meaningfully deliberate when you do it. So for our next question from the microphone.
Sharon Robbins, City Club member. I just have a question about what geography the Soul District encompasses, because I grew up across the street from Beach Elementary on Denver, so I don't know whether, does it stretch to Interstate, does it stretch to Columbia Boulevard, how far east does it stretch, how far south?
So the boundary is really an ish, but right now it's Interstate, Lombard, Broadway, 42nd, ish.
Walter Robinson, City Club member. There was a recent article released in the Medium that discussed someone's difficult experience around accessing venture capital in PDX as a Black entrepreneur and startup. Stephen, this is more for you, but as someone who has been working with startups for the past decade, what do you see as the barriers in accessing capital, and how can we improve who gets access and what gets access?
Gotcha. So this is my personal opinion. I will steal Cole's thunder there. Portland's startup ecosystem is really maturing right now, but it's still really early. The amount of venture capital going out is up 25% year over year, but it's still a drop in the bucket. Venture capital is less than 1% of capital that goes to companies. And the people that we have giving out this capital mainly, by and large, have technology backgrounds. They don't have athletic apparel, they don't have consumer product. And so I think one of the gaps and the tough thing about, and so this person that wrote this Medium post, they have a fintech company. We don't have a lot of people with fintech backgrounds doling out money. And so by and large, human beings are creatures of habit and things that we're comfortable with. If I'm not comfortable with something, I'm gonna say no. I think the bigger thing that I think, if I put my funder hat on, is as a funder, we always wanna see people that can make informed decisions, right? And so one of the things I see happening out there is people going out trying to raise venture capital when it's really the wrong tool. And they've been sold this bill of goods like it's a Cub Scout badge. And it's like, well, I got a startup, so I'm supposed to raise venture capital, right? And it's like, no, you're supposed to, have something great about your business, and then it's easier to get capital from there. Because sometimes you don't need venture capital, you don't need equity. You can go to Albino Opportunities Corps, you can go to MISO and get a loan so you can get to that next milestone. And so I think the point, what should be the point in our ecosystem for all businesses is how do we make informed decisions around the tools that we need to take our business from where we're at right now to where we want to go in the future.
Show up and support local businesses. Your dollar, your dollar, your dollar, your $7, sir, because you can afford it. Your $9. All of those things add to our overall community. So maybe, Safeway is great, but maybe you shop at a local grocer as well. Starbucks, I said it, is great, but there's like 1,500 local coffee shops.
That's not coffee.
That's not coffee. That's not
Right, Old
coffee.
Town. Sneakers and coffee.
We need to start looking at those things when people wonder why, oh my God, that business was so great. I don't know why it's not here anymore. Did you ever buy anything there? So that's a question that I ask. So opposed to us supporting these big brands, Beyonce is great, Kanye is great, but why aren't you supporting your local community business that with the same fever that we are trying to get that number 2 Chanel bag when you've got 15 local bag makers in your own community?
Well, and I would add to that, who in here buys TriMet tickets through the mobile app that they have? Who in here? So when you do that, you're supporting a Black-owned business. I don't know if you know that. Yeah, you're supporting a local Black-owned business when you do that.
Andy's a South Carolinian. Nice. Oh, we have time for one more question.
Promise King City Club member. I was a reporter who covered the Albino Community Plan, but I'm not going to go into that. For the past 3 decades, our planning culture has revolved around lifestyle issues. Bicycle lane, parking rank, that's great. Don't get me wrong, but the bread and butter issues has not been part and parcel of that plan. So that is a challenge we have in trying to implement the mandate and the dreams of the Albino Community Plan. Take it back to 2016. To sustain what's left, how will you ask the power that be to revisit the planning culture so it revolves around kitchen table, bread and butter issues?
Well, I think that part of what's on the ground, we need to stop asking other folks to set the table for us at this point, and that's part of what BICEP's about. It's really about figuring out, pooling our resources and figuring out what we can do. We need public partners to support us financially in doing those things. But, to have people set the table for us, we've been waiting on the table to be set for 40 years. And so I think that what we're looking to do is to identify projects that we can do that can house Black businesses, that can employ Black contractors and Black architects, of whom we have one in the audience, and can actually engage the Black professional community, and they can be part of that development. And so that is part of what we're looking to do long term. You don't do development on a turnaround in 12 months, or that's a 5-year plan. But we have Black landowners who've been sitting on dirt for 30 years, and they haven't trusted PDC to actually help them get that developed. They don't really know how to develop their land. They're not developers and they don't have money to develop, so they need to partner with somebody. We're looking to help create the model that allows them to partner with somebody where they don't have to just sell their land and get a paycheck and be done, which is what happened to all of our homeowners in Northeast Portland, but they actually can, to create a model where they can participate in the upside, which is the development and the profitability from that development. So,
Gina, I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
We are out of broadcast time. I think we could talk about this for a really, really long time. I would like to ask everyone in the room here today to join me in thanking our panel. Thanks for being here today, and thank you to Tony Tabora Roberts and Walter Robinson II for our program today. Thanks for being here. We're adjourned.